JJ the CPA here. We're going to talk about gambling losses, but kind of a unique aspect of the gambling losses. And what we want to get into is, what are you able to deduct? The first thing to know is that you can deduct losses to the extent of your winnings. If you've got 14,000 in losses and 10,000 in winnings, you're only able to deduct $10,000. And when I say deduct, it's part of your itemized deductions. And so with the new law, the itemized deductions, if they're lower than the standard deduction, which married filing jointly is 24,000, singles 12,000, if that standard deduction is higher than the itemized deductions, you're obviously going to want to take the standard deduction. So if you're used to your gambling winnings being offset fully by your gambling losses, that hasn't changed, but with the higher standard deduction, it may affect how everything plays out in terms of the deductions on your tax return. Here's the one thing though to keep in mind. Here's the interesting part. You can actually deduct expenses on gambling. And what I mean by that is travel expenses to and from Vegas that's involved with your intent of going out there to gamble. Any kind of expense that you're going to incur. So if you're at the tables and you've got drinks, if you have hotel and you have those kind of expenses, those can also offset your winnings. You'd want to get with a CPA to figure out specifics. So you're not going to be able to go to Vegas and write off the shows. And if you win $3,000, write off, a bunch of expenses if you only gambled one night. But here's my thing. Not everybody is in a situation where their gambling losses are to the extent of their gambling winnings, meaning they might have won 10, but they only have expense or loss of $2,000. So if you're now able to add to that the expenses that you incurred to win that money, that's less tax that you're going to pay. Here's the other thing to remember is that if you put $2,000 down on the table in a night, or $2,000 in the machine in a night, or over a weekend, don't forget to include that in what you're offsetting to the winnings. So I know a lot of us can go, woo, I just won 10 grand. Well, if it cost you 2 grand, you did win 10, but you netted 8 for the night if you gave them 2 grand, right? Why am I saying that? You probably would be like, well, duh, but be sure that you're including that in what it is that you get to deduct. And then if you're in a circumstance where you have expenses on top of that, then you want to be able to add that to your expense or your losses to offset the winnings. Now, here's the thing. If you put 10 grand on the table and you only won 8, well, you're already maxed out because you're only going to be able to write off up to $8,000 in gambling losses. And so whatever expenses you have doesn't matter. And that's what the new law made clear. You do not get to deduct gambling expenses in addition to losses. You're only able to do that if they are less than or equal to the winnings. So if you've got some big gambling winnings, or if you have regular gambling winnings, which is becoming more prevalent now, you want to get with your CPA now. And you're going to know how much they are because you win, you get a Form W-2G immediately, and it tells you how much you won. Keep those, get it to the CPA, plan for it, because this could be a year with the itemized deduction and the standard deduction changes that you might be surprised on how things come out, meaning you owe. You also, though, have time to plan and figure out what it is that you should put together to offset those winnings in terms of your expenses. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. Don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me.